everybody. Oh my God, look at my hair. I just dried it, and I guess that some of it just went a little bit kablooey. I'm getting it done next week. It's that time. So, good to see everybody. How are y'all? Oh, I forgot to share my membership link, which I will do right this minute. Hang on. I don't know why I always forget something. Always forget something before going live. It's very embarrassing. Okay. I will pop that in very, very quickly and we'll get started. So, here we go. Thank you for being here today. I made good on my promise that I wasn't going to continue beating the dead horse that is Amberlynn Reed and Becky, because quite frankly, I'm quite a bit tired of it, as I made clear yesterday. So anyway, today we're going to take a look at some political nonsense. Dimpled Skeptic, thank you for becoming a member. Fantastic. I appreciate you. And it's good to have you here. Thank you so much. All right, so for those of you who didn't know, today is International Women's Day. And I wanted to read you something that was written by an exceptionally brave woman, a woman for whom I have nothing but admiration, Yasmin Mohammed. She's a former Muslim, and she is an incredibly, incredibly brave campaigner. So I thought I would read you what she posted on Twitter today. She wrote the following: Christian girls in Nigeria kidnapped, raped, and slaughtered by Boko Haram. Sikh and Hindu girls in Pakistan taken from their families and forced into Islam. Yazidi women sold into slavery. Jewish women raped and butchered by Hamas on October 7th. Mass sexual assaults in Italy, Germany, and Sweden by migrant men. Rape gangs in the UK preying on thousands of young girls while authorities looked the other way. Every day, women across the world are being raped, kidnapped, forcibly converted, sold into slavery, brutalized, and of course trafficked into prostitution. I'm going to call it prostitution from now on. I'm not going to say sex work. It's prostitution. And to make it so much worse, they are being ignored. Why? Because their oppressors are the wrong skin color and the wrong religion for mainstream feminists to care. Because speaking the truth is labeled Islamophobia. Because calling out this horror is deemed more offensive than the crimes themselves. Enough. No more silence, no more excuses, no more gaslighting. This International Women's Day, if you claim to stand for women, stand for all women. Stop protecting their abusers. Hear, hear. I would much rather come on my channel and tell the truth and hold all predators accountable, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, doesn't matter. So call me a racist as much as you want. I'm just sitting here speaking facts. All right. So on International Women's Day, I want us all to remember that we're not just meant to honor women of great accomplishment. We're not meant to just look at the Nobel Prize winners and the politicians and, the campaigners. We're meant to look at the women whose names we will never know, the girls whose names we will never know, who are being brutalized systematically by men around the world, and these men are not being held accountable. They are not being imprisoned. They are not being punished. And in fact, it's those very same feminists that we just spoke of who will go rush to their defense, or, politicians from the Labor Party or others who are too cowardly and too frightened to say what's actually going on and hold these men to account. So never, ever, ever forget the anonymous victims. Never. And with that, I move on. Yeah. Yeah. I'm listen, a lot of people have been lying a lot lately. And I have gotten to a point now. I mean, I reached this point a while ago where I just didn't give a shit anymore because these people are incredibly dishonest. They are cowards because they themselves are too cowardly to call out the real problem. They're too cowardly to point the finger where it belongs. And instead, they point the finger at people who are harmless, people who hold opinions that they don't agree with, people that they just don't like for whatever reason. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. And it shows an incredible ignorance of the world and an incredible ignorance of where the actual threat lies. And I think that we need to recognize that. It's absurd. And I'm not surprised that the fervor to investigate and finally bring the Pakistani rape gangs in the UK to justice has fizzled out, because none of the politicians, including, I'm sorry to say, Kemi Badenoch, who I had tremendous hopes for as the leader of the Conservative Party, nobody has the will to press on, which is exactly why the Reform Party in the UK is making such enormous strides right now. And there's a reason, because a lot of people, the silent majority, are looking at the two political parties in the UK. They're looking at the Tories and they're looking at Labour and saying, you people don't represent our interests. You're all cowards and you don't want to do anything about the real problems that affect us, things that we want done. So reform is surging, and we'll see how that turns out for everybody. Now, back to the United States. I found a couple of videos by Nate the lawyer, and I'm going to close out with a bit of good news from my hometown of Washington, D.C. Now, it appears that a number of politicians have completely lost their goddamn minds. All right, and I'm going to start in New York with the horrendous the horrendous governor of New York, who is an absolute disgrace. And thank God we've got Nate the lawyer, who is so good at finding these crazy politicians and these crazy stories and bringing them to our attention. So let's start in New York, because honestly, when I first saw this video, I could not believe what I was looking at. I was absolutely astonished. Okay. So let's take a look at what the governor of New York did. And I promise you, you're not going to see this one coming, because it is crazy. Let's go.
Governor Hochul is moving to strip her lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, of much of the power of his office after he hints at a primary challenge to her next year.
Do it.
No offices, no electronic devices, no staff. I mean, will he just resign in the face of all of this?
3 words, not a chance.
So let's talk about how the governor of New York is stripping the lieutenant governor of all of his authority because she doesn't like the fact he's going to run for governor against her.
Now, it goes beyond that, though. Keep in mind that this is the same governor who, when New York was being basically taken over by the pro-Palestinian neo-Nazi terrorists in the streets with the keffiyehs and Antifa and others, decided that she was going to call out the National Guard to protect the subway, which is all well and good, but the streets of New York were out of control. And this woman had the gall to go down in the subway and proclaim that the subways were improved. Ta-da! Everything that I did, it saved the subway. It's safe to come out now. And I believe it was the same day that that poor woman was set on fire by a lunatic in a subway car. The woman is an absolute disaster. So let's see what happened with this lieutenant governor.
Okay, so let me start at the beginning. This is Governor Kathy Hochul, the governor of the great state of New York. And she became governor in 2021 when Andrew Cuomo had to resign after his Me Too issues.
This morning, Andrew Cuomo, New York's politically pugnacious governor, calling it quits after an investigation by the state attorney general documented multiple sexual harassment allegations made by 11 women.
Now, in 2022, Kathy Hochul ran for her own term as governor, but she needed a lieutenant governor to run on her ticket. So she chose Antonio Delgado.
There was an obvious height difference when Kathy Hochul introduced her new lieutenant governor, Congressman Antonio Delgado, who played semi-pro basketball in Puerto Rico.
Oh, no wonder.
I'm getting a few pointers to play some hoops together.
I am African American, and I am Cape Verdean.
Hey, Rosie.
My wife is black and Jewish. Our children we're raising Jewish. And so, all these different entry points connect to me and just really help me to figure out how to go in and out of communities.
No, I'm not a pretty boy. Not from the city, but I still make city noise.
He also had a short-lived career as a rapper known as A.D. The Voice. When he ran for Congress in 2018, Republicans tried to brand him as a big city rapper. A former Rhodes Scholar, Colgate and Harvard Law graduate, Delgado's family is ethnically mixed.
Now, with the backing of Governor Kathy Hochul, Delgado was able to defeat two other Democrats in the election to become lieutenant governor.
Now to the Democratic race for lieutenant governor here on primary night in New York. As Marsha Kramer reported earlier, Associated Press is projecting Antonio Delgado as the winner. You can see it right there. 52% of the precincts are in, and he has a commanding lead over his opponents there, garnering 61% of the vote.
So basically, this guy is like a dream candidate. He's like Preet Bharara, who used to be the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Preet Bharara, who is Indian, whose parents are Sikh and Hindu, and his wife is half Pakistani, half Israeli. Amazing story. This guy is similar. Harvard Law graduate, or Harvard graduate, Rhodes Scholar, rapper, the amazing family, the whole nine. He is a dream candidate. So let's take a look at what the governor did to him and why.
Now, Delgado was a moderate conservative Democrat who really didn't get in line with the woke agenda.
Criticism of the Democratic Party by some Republicans and others within the party itself that the party went too woke. I guess that's the word they use now to describe that, and it can be used now for different connotations. I think you're aware of that. And now you see DEI being stripped back by the Republican Party as well. My question is the party at almost in jeopardy of moving too far away from representing those that don't have that voice in trying to make this change to speak to a wider demographic?
As someone who at one time represented a rural community, a 90% white rural community a district that Trump won by 7 points, I could speak about the ways in which when you are a private investor model and you look for densely populated areas to get your return on investment in things, well, who are you going to overlook?
Hey, no, thank you.
Rural, poor white, working class communities that are still struggling to have broadband access in the 21st century, that are still struggling to have cell service in the 21st century, that are dealing with closures of hospitals because of hospital consolidation.
That's right.
Or our small family-owned farms who are dealing with the big ag and the monopolies that go on there. This is the issue. We have stopped figuring out how to connect people's loss of economic security.
Yep.
Be they white, be they black, be they brown, whatever their background is. We have stopped talking about it in a way that connects their pain in a meaningful way. And then implementing policies that ultimately speak to that pain and solve for it.
Now,
Okay, I cannot tell you how much I love this man. This guy is the future of the Democratic Party, if the Democrats are smart, which we all know they are not. I have been saying for years that this DEI thing should apply to socioeconomic background, that we should be giving young people from impoverished backgrounds a leg up, regardless of skin color, not base it on skin color at all. That we should be just pushing race and ethnicity off the table, and we should be looking at people who come from towns and areas like this one, where there is no opportunity or very little opportunity, and a great lie being perpetrated that, well, if you're, born white, you're born, on third base, and you think you hit a triple or whatever. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. People here used to be very industrious and hardworking. Factories left, and the town decayed into drug addiction and poverty. And you see this at the Rust Belt. You see this in former coal mining towns. And so I would be more in favor of giving it a leg up to the poor people from any neighborhood in any part of the United States and dismissing race entirely. As a matter of fact, this is sort of connected. I saw an amazing story the other day. There was an Asian kid in California. This kid invented an app when he was in middle school. The kid applied to 16 colleges and he got rejected from every single university that he applied to. The guy had near perfect SAT scores. I think he was 5 points away from a perfect score. And he was already, an inventor and a thinker and so on. He got rejected from every single school he applied to. So his father said, oh, yeah. And he announced that he was going to be suing the Board of Regents of the University of California system. Meanwhile, his story was contrasted. And at 19, instead of going to college, the kid was offered a job with Google. So the kid is going to go into the workforce instead of going to school, which is great. And he deserves to get a job with Google. Meanwhile, there was a story about a girl who I believe is of Puerto Rican descent. The girl was accepted. She was the valedictorian of her class. She was accepted to the University of Hartford, and she is completely, totally illiterate. She cannot read or write. Nothing, not a word. Which makes me wonder, how the hell did she take the SATs? How did she graduate as valedictorian of her class? Apparently, she was making her way through school by listening to audio recordings. But how did she take exams? I don't understand how this works. And when people talk about the natural advantages that people with white skin have in this country, what they're forgetting when it comes to DEI and so on, is that the group that originally brought the lawsuit, the anti-affirmative action lawsuit against Harvard, were Asian students who had been discriminated against systematically. And we're seeing more and more examples of Asian students, excellent Asian students, who are being rejected from universities. So, hey, Kimmers, good to see you. So let's continue with the lieutenant governor, who is very, very solid and very sane, which of course means that he must be destroyed.
Governor and her lieutenant governor started butting heads pretty early. For instance, Delgado said that Joe Biden needed to step down. He was too old to run, and he called on Joe Biden to not run for president again. Where Kathy Hochul said she wanted him to run for president again, and she supported Joe Biden, and that all Democrats needed to get behind Joe Biden.
Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado is breaking with Governor Kathy Hochul in asking Joe Biden to drop out of the presidential race.
Delgado posted on social media a lengthy statement touting Biden's accomplishments during his first term. The post also says the 81-year-old deserves the country's eternal gratitude for beating Donald Trump in 2020. Hochul's office responded saying she still believes Biden should be the nominee and that Democrats should come together to defeat Trump in November.
Now, Kathy Hochul wants to run for governor again.
Of course she does.
But Delgado thinks that he will be a better choice.
He is.
When Kathy Hochul asked him to run on her ticket again, he declined, saying he's going to go it on his own.
Good evening, everyone. A clean break between the two at the top of state leadership tonight, as New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado says he is not going to be on Governor Hochul's re-election ticket in 2026. And that all options, he says, are on the table.
His statement bringing a fiery response from the governor's communications director. And tonight we're getting reaction from lawmakers, too. Here's more.
Quote, today, Antonio Delgado finally said out loud what has been obvious for quite some time. He's simply not interested in doing the job of lieutenant governor of the state of New York.
Or maybe he just doesn't want to serve under Hochul, who is a terrible governor. So
Governor Kathy Hochul's team firing back after Antonio Delgado declares his independence from her ticket, something Assembly Democrat John McDonald says he's seen coming the last 6 months to a year, and that there's been a clear divide between Hochul and Delgado, and now that it's a deeper one, he says it's sad.
Now, there was an issue. Delgado was still the elected lieutenant governor.
Exactly.
And there was nothing that Kathy Hochul could do about that unless he resigned. So Kathy Hochul did the next best thing. Strip him of all his authority and attempt to take all his legal power.
Ain't that some shit?
Governor Hochul is moving to strip her lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, of much of the power of his office after he hints at a primary challenge to her next year.
Now Hochul wants him out of her sight. She banished him from his office on the same floor as hers in the Capitol in Albany, took away his offices in New York City and the Hudson Valley, confiscated his state-issued electronic devices, and is reassigning much of his staff.
Okay, another reminder needs to be underscored. This man was elected to that position. Now, obviously, she's trying to strong-arm him and marginalize him so that he resigns. But he's hanging tough. Hello, my love. Good to see you. Hello, hello. This guy is amazing, okay? And he is exactly what the Democratic Party needs. The only three people in the party that I can single out as being a promising way forward, this guy, Richie Torres, and John Fetterman. That's it. There's nobody else. Nobody else. Because the party has completely lost its way and gone the way of UK's Labour Party, which is a very, very bad sign. But he's digging in. And good for him. And I hope he wins the governorship because he's terrific. Let's go.
All because he hinted at challenging her for re-election. In recent days, he's made no bones about the fact that he and Hochul don't see eye to eye. This is what he said during an interview recently with CBS 6 in Albany.
And for me, it's very, very important for New Yorkers to know that I am their voice, that I want to be their voice, and that is the only thing that I am beholden to.
I think this is her way of saying, look, this is my fiefdom, I'm in charge, you were my pick, you were my lieutenant governor, I made you.
All right, Marcia, no offices, no electronic devices, no staff. I mean, will he just resign in the face of all of this?
3 words, not a chance.
Good.
Look, he sent me a statement saying he is deeply, deeply committed to being the voice of people in New York and representing people in New York State. Remember, she can't force him out.
Right.
He was elected by the people.
Yes.
So he can continue to collect, get this, his $220,000 salary until the end of the term. And there's nothing she can do. By the way, it makes him the highest paid lieutenant governor in the entire country.
So in this story,
he deserves
you
the money.
have a white woman firing a black man, and no one is making this into a race issue because it's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul. But I find it interesting that when...
No, nobody is making it into a race issue because Delgado has made it abundantly clear that he is opposed to DEI and that he wants to restructure DEI along socioeconomic lines, regardless of race, instead of strictly adhering to race. That's why nobody is coming to his defense. That's why you don't hear the usual suspects out there yapping and going on and on and on about this. That's why they've left him twisting in the wind. And I have nothing but respect for that guy.
When President Trump fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who happens to be black, it was all about race. He's racist. It's, the guy happens to be black. It's just fascinating to see how the news media covers essentially the same type of firing, because Kathy Hochul is essentially stripping this guy of all his powers because they just aren't ideologically aligned anymore. And Trump was doing the same thing to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, saying, hey, I want somebody, my own person in that spot because I think it'll be better for me. It's wild that in one instance, it's racism, and in the other instance, it's good politics. But you let me know in the comment section, what do you think about this story? Do you think the governor went too far? Do you think she should have stripped him of all his authority and taken away his cars and electronics?
Ridiculous.
And sent him to a closet. It seems a little petty for my taste, but hey, it's New York.
Okay, so what I think is that he is terrific. and onward and upward with your career. I wish I lived in New York so I could vote for him. All right, let's go on to the next one. Now, we have been subjected to the sight of those idiot mayors on the Hill with their sanctuary city horseshit. Well, what happens when you elect a BLM activist to run a little tiny town in a southern state? What happens? A disaster. So let's take a look. A lot of people have been focusing on Tiffany Henyard in Dalton, and I get it because what a story. But everybody has overlooked this guy, and this guy is a real piece of work. So let's take a look at this individual. Once again, thanks to Nate the lawyer for pointing it out. And let's take a look at what this clown did in the city. Stripped of powers, banned from City Hall with police escort. It must have been really bad. Well, actually, yeah, it really was. Let's take a look.
Okay, so this BLM activist became mayor of the blackest city in America. He then got arrested for burglary.
This afternoon, some residents in the city of South Fulton have called for the mayor to resign after his arrest over the weekend. Mayor Khalid Kamau faces burglary and trespassing charges.
Then he started spending tens of thousands of dollars traveling around the world.
How many times were you in Colombia?
So again, I went to Colombia 3 times last year.
Okay, Colombia 3 times, Paris twice, Rwanda and Ghana, and Toronto?
Yes, and those all weren't in the same year. That was over 2 years.
Then when the all-black city council called him out, he played the race card.
Beautiful.
I am so distressed and disappointed that the blackest city in the United States of America is heading into Black History Month.
Oh, no.
With its all-black council tearing each other down.
Where is my little violin?
Sit around and call us the blackest city and say we want to tear each other down. We're not tearing you down. You took your black behind over to Africa for 20 days and didn't tell anybody. No, he called us the blackest city.
Now the city council just stripped him of all his powers and kicked him out of City Hall.
Good.
So let's talk about it. All right, for those of you who don't know who this person is, this is Khalid Kamau. He's also known as Mayor Kobe. He is the mayor of South Fulton, Georgia. Now, his claim to fame is being the first Black Lives Matter organizer to be elected mayor of a town.
I'm running to build a city with a table that is big enough for everyone to have a seat.
Now, the city of South Fulton has a population of 110,000 people. This makes South Fulton the 7th largest city in the state of Georgia. So
okay, I was wrong. It's not that tiny.
BLM activist to be its mayor, and things started falling apart quickly.
Of course.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Indochino. Happy New Year, everybody! And with the new year comes
Nate.
new opportunities. And let's be honest, new chance, and use the code NATE to get 20%. And for those of you who are too lazy to type this into a browser, the link is entered by the homeowner until police showed up.
Wait a minute. Now, I don't want to skip over this part because it's important.
Link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Go check them out and tell them Nate sent you. Now let's get back to our crazy bear who seems to be smoking something very interesting in this picture. First, the mayor was arrested for burglary and he was held at gunpoint by the homeowner until police showed up.
Learning more this morning about why the mayor of South Fulton was arrested over the weekend. The charges listed in that report are criminal trespassing and burglary.
Now, the house in question was a lakefront property on Cascade Palmetto Highway where a homeowner held the mayor at gunpoint until police arrived.
The homeowner spotted him walking on private property at a home on Cascade Palmetto Highway on Saturday around 7 a.m. Kamau reportedly proceeded to the lake house on that property, and the homeowner then called police and ordered the mayor to stay put as he approached him. Now, Kamau allegedly told the homeowner, "You can't give me orders. Do you know who the blank I am?"
God, not even Marion Barry got to this level of fuck shit. Burglary and trespassing and held at gunpoint by the homeowner. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Let's go.
I'm the mayor, and I'll wait for my police force to get there.
So obviously this was a troubling sign, but it didn't stop there because things started devolving even further, all the way to the point where the city council took a vote of no confidence against the mayor.
The South Fulton City Council says it has no confidence in its own mayor. This comes after the mayor claimed the council created a culture of corruption. It's been a fiery week in South Fulton, and that included tonight, where multiple onlookers protested and had to be escorted out of the meeting.
City Council made a unanimous vote of no confidence against their own mayor, Khalid Camus.
This city council is doing whatever they want to do.
This a few days after the mayor questioned the council's handling of a police investigation.
I'm blowing the whistle on this because as mayor, the buck stops with me. And the end of this culture of corruption will also stop with me.
Fast forward to Friday. Camus said this meeting was illegal, violating an Open Meetings Act. He said he also filed temporary restraining orders against the city attorney and all council members.
Now, as Mayor Khalid Camus had a company credit card and he had access to public funds. So the mayor decided to travel around the world on taxpayer dollars.
Why not?
The mayor of South Fulton is defending his international travels funded by tax dollars.
Of course.
Mayor Roncorbin, formerly known as Khalid Camus, says he visited countries on 4 continents last year to promote South Fulton as an international hub for black businesses, and did so within all local and federal expense guidelines.
Now, but some of the council members there in South Fulton are raising questions about whether that travel was even appropriate.
Transaction records show Kobe used his city-issued Visa card to book trips around the world.
How many times were you in Colombia?
So again, I went to Colombia 3 times last year.
Okay.
Three
Colombia
times.
3 times, Paris twice, Rwanda and Ghana, and Toronto.
Yes, and those all weren't in the same year. That was over 2 years.
Now, the city council then confronted the mayor with all of this, saying, hey, you're spending money kind of frivolously, and these are taxpayer dollars. The mayor then did something very interesting. He pulled the race card on the blackest city in America.
I love it.
So distressed and disappointed that the blackest city in the United States of America is heading into Black History Month.
Oh, no.
With its all-black council tearing each other down.
Oh, no.
Mayor, I really was going to let this go, but I can't continue to sit here and allow you to make it seem like we're the villains and you're the victim. Now, those cameras are in the back of the room, not because of us. We would love to come to a meeting and just go through this agenda, have a professional meeting, and do the business of the people and go home. But it was you who want to sit around and call us the blackest city and say we want to tear each other down. We're not tearing you down. You took your black behind over to Africa for 20 days and didn't tell anybody. No, he called us a blacker city, and that was disrespectful. We keep telling him that.
Now, while all this was going on, the mayor brings his dog to work all the time.
Very
and his
cute dog.
Started violating people in the office.
This city cannot take on liability to play games with him. This dog has violated people.
There is a
The dog has
dogfight of sorts
violated
brewing in
people.
the city of South Fulton. One city council member has legislation on the agenda that will ban pets from all government buildings, including City Hall. The South Fulton mayor says the legislation is yet another jab at him because he has a dog that travels with him often.
The same councilwoman who's called to investigate my travel receipts, she tried to take my car. And so at this meeting, she's trying to take my staff and trying to take my dog.
So the city council didn't want to become like Dalton, Illinois, where the mayor essentially took over the town because they couldn't remove the mayor. So what they did was strip the mayor of all his powers and let him keep his salary.
We have a lot to
Must
get to
be
this
nice.
Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm Fred Blankenship.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Linda Stouffer, and we begin with that breaking news. Tuesday, the city of South Fulton council members voted to strip the mayor of all of his duties.
What a
the move
mess.
comes after the mayor was accused of misusing thousands of dollars on unauthorized purchases, including international trips. Channel 2 investigative reporter Ashley Lincoln is live in the newsroom with the fallout today. Ashley.
Yeah, we found out this means he's been ordered to not have any contact with employees or have access to any city buildings at this time.
It is the consensus of the council that the mayor, through the unauthorized use of resources and abuse of his position, refusing to follow policy, and engaging in conduct unbecoming to a member, which constitutes a breach of public trust.
So the next day, Mayor Colby went to an Atlanta radio station and told the host that he had done some pretty bad things, but this was actually a coup to take his job.
South Fulton Mayor Khalid Kamau, who wants to be called Mayor Kobe, appeared on the Big Tigger and Jazzy McBee morning show Thursday on Atlanta's V103.
They kicked me out my office. They kicked my staff out my office. They took my car. I had come there with the First Dog Zion.
Right, Neon
They put
Rose?
us out in the rain.
The mayor admitted he made some missteps when following city travel policy. He says he was marketing the city on trade missions to Colombia, Ghana, Paris, and Rwanda.
Yeah, but the problem is that apparently he didn't tell the city council he was going. It looks like he just fucked off overseas and used taxpayer money and, didn't bother to mention this to anyone. And apparently none of these trips bore fruit. Because there was no, there was no payoff at the end. Nobody opened a business. Nobody started a trade situation with South Fulton. So he got some nice trips out of the deal.
A review of his receipts show expenses on his purchase card adding up to more than $26,000.
So first of all, it's not $26,000. Well, the first thing to know is that it's travel over 2 years. Now, they've done a forensic audit on my card,
Right.
but they haven't done one on the other people that have traveled internationally.
The mayor admitted all of his travel was not business.
Because some of the trip was personal. I turned down $1,000 in per diem. I never stayed one night in a hotel for the entire 21 days. I stayed in people's houses. I stayed with friends. So my 21 days in Ghana totals about $7,000. No, I didn't do everything the way it should have been done. See, a politician will lie to you, but I'm not going to lie.
We have new body cam video showing the moment police told the mayor of South Fulton that his access had been revoked and he is no longer allowed inside City Hall.
How embarrassing.
Mayor, I've been instructed to not allow you in your office, and also you are permitted to drive a city vehicle per directions from the city manager and the chief.
Police escorted Mayor Kobe outside, and this all comes after the council says the mayor has used taxpayer money for personal use and international travel. The mayor told 11 Alive he is heartbroken by the council's actions. However, he is still the mayor of South Fulton.
Now, that's true.
Well,
Colby was still technically mayor. So the city council said, well, you can come back to City Hall and use your office, but all the other restrictions stay in place.
Mayor Khalid Kamau, who now goes by Mayor Kobe, may return to his office inside South Fulton City Hall. On the 12th, City Councilwoman Helen Willis explained the temporary move.
That is so that we can retrieve all items out of his office that have been purchased without proper use of city funds, such as the pool table, such as a lot of media equipment. Those things weren't authorized.
But he still can't use a city-issued vehicle until an official policy on mayoral transportation is established. Nor does he have budget access until a forensic audit is completed. The City Council reinforced its concerns regarding the mayor's alleged policy violations, saying Tuesday, quote, "These actions follow a series of council decisions aimed at addressing concerns regarding the unauthorized use of city resources, non-compliance with policies, and conduct unbecoming of a public official."
We wanted to make sure that we were exercising our duty to protect the taxpayer, to protect the taxpayer dollars, and to make actions and engage in actions to restore public confidence in this government.
So let me know what you feel about this story. The blackest city in America with the BLM mayor has stripped him of all his powers, kicked him out of City Hall, and said, only thing we're going to do is pay you. You shut up and continue to live your life. Do you guys think the city council overreached? Because he was elected by the people, and if he's spending the money crazy, then that's what technically they allowed him to do. He was crazy before they elected him, and he's crazy while he's mayor. Let me know how you feel in the comments section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you in the next.
Okay, my understanding of why he broke into that house is because he said that he was just walking by and he saw the house and he liked the look of it. And he said, I'm paraphrasing now because I read an article about it, that it was his dream house and he just wanted to take a look around. And I think that he said that he might want to buy it or some bullshit, but he basically just walked into the house without permission, and the owner took exception to it, and held him at gunpoint, and that was that. What an embarrassment. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to take one tiny little break, and I will be right back, so hang tight because I've got one more video for you guys, and it pertains to my hometown of Washington, D.C., and it is good news for me. And for some of you, maybe. I'll be right back. And I am back. Okay, so I saw this video today and I was thrilled. So let me bring up this video and we'll all watch it together, and I will sit here and I will provide my commentary. All right, let's take a look. This is actual justice warrior. Let's listen.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's decision to remove Black Lives Matter Plaza has sent shockwaves through our region and across the country. The mural served as a symbol for equal rights and a visual representation that Washington, D.C. was leading the way for change. News Force Anyang sat down with a local professor to discuss the move by the mayor and the impact it will have for years to come.
Now, that intro was absolutely and objectively ridiculous and absurd from top to bottom. According to this local news reporter, the decision from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to remove the words Black Lives Matter from the streets of this area in the District of Columbia have sent shockwaves across not just the region, but the nation as a whole. Because
that is absolutely absurd. And for those of you who don't know where BLM Plaza was, it's right up the street from the White House. It's on 16th Street. So that's what happened. And we're going to find out why. Let's go.
This was a symbol that the District of Columbia was leading the way into the future, leading the way in terms of equality, and therefore, by removing this yellow paint from the street, we're absolutely destroying the future of equality or whatever. Honestly, this is one of the most ridiculously absurd things I could possibly imagine, because I had no clue, even though there were shockwaves rippling across the country, that this was being removed until somebody else had sent me a tip on this. And I'm sure many of you out there in the audience don't even think about what is painted on the streets of the District of Columbia.
I do.
Other than the fact that today we're going to laugh about this. And by the way, credit where credit is due to the evil Orange Man's administration. Essentially, we had a bill in Congress that was going to force this removal. And rather than Muriel Bowser have to deal with the humiliation of them forcing her to remove this, she has decided to do it on her own because she understands that there's going to be consequences from the Republican Congress, who does have a lot of control over the District of Columbia, for keeping this nonsense up here. And make no mistake about it, this was put up in order to satiate a violent, rabid political movement that was rioting and destroying our country back in 2020.
And I would like to point out, it's a violent movement. It's a movement that is deeply anti-Semitic. It is a very radical movement. And it is an organization that is going to go down in history as being known for embezzlement and a complete waste of funds that were donated for the purposes of activism, but were used to buy luxury homes for the people who were at the top. So I have no love for the BLM organization. When the when the BLM logo was painted on 16th Street, I was not thrilled about it, but I thought, okay, whatever, there's nothing I can do about it, but I wasn't happy about it. The BLM protests in DC caused a lot more actual property and physical damage than January 6th did. Now, I am not making apologies for January 6th, and I am tired of people who tried to gloss over how bad it was, and the police officers who were injured, and the destruction to the Capitol and all that. But at least it was contained in one area. That's the best we can say. BLM affected large swathes of the city. And we're about to see more on this matter.
And now it's being removed, and you have the local news going out of their way to try to find people that are outraged by it, because most people don't give a damn about this. They thought it was stupid at the time, but due to cultural pressures, due to the fact that you could get fired from your job for saying so, most people just went super quiet. Now, of course, DC voted overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party.
They always do.
Obviously, we understand that you're going to find people more in favor of it over there. But that being said, with the recent crime waves that they've had in DC due to woke criminal justice reform, I think maybe, just maybe, they're sick of the Black Lives Matter stuff, just like the rest of us. Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to break this down. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com.
Bowser says the Black Lives Matter mural on 16th Street will be painted over. The bright yellow letters that spell out Black Lives Matter became symbolic nationwide after the murder of George Floyd.
So a huge part of me wants to defend the English language and wants to defend the term symbolic, because in no way, shape, or form should we consider the literal writing of the words Black Lives Matter to be a symbol at all, because it's the words. It's not something that represents that idea conceptually.
Right.
But what this is actually symbolic of is not the idea that black people matter. Most people understand that. In fact, people on the right who didn't want to defund the police understand that far, far more than people on the left. But it was symbolic of the absolute takeover, the absolute destruction of our country, the hostage taking that occurred during the Black Lives Matter riots period, because these people were destroying major cities, rioting for days after days, months after months, almost a full year straight, most dangerous riots or most destructive riots in American history, and they were able to get their logo, their ideas, their endorsements paid for by the taxpayer across our major cities, including in our nation's capital.
And I will tell you that, and I've said this before, that my final decision to leave Washington, and this was even before Negz and I were talking and befriended each other or started seeing each other, I had decided based on the BLM riots and then finally January 6th that I'd had enough. I'd had enough of living in a city that is, like ground zero for all these lunatics to come in and burn and, destroy businesses and destroy private property. I'd had enough of it. The taxes in DC are very, very high. And the city is quite small. And these protests and Antifa and everybody else, I'd had it up to here. And I said, that's it. This is not a city that I can continue to live in, paying these extortionately high taxes, having traffic blocked, having the streets blocked, with the violence and everything else. I said, that's enough for me. I intend to leave DC at the earliest possible opportunity. And it was largely driven by BLM. And then January 6th was the final nail in the coffin. I said, that's it. I can't live here anymore. Enough is enough.
And this was while, by the way, the evil orange man was president.
Joining us now to talk about the impact of this change is Dr. Kay Wise Whitehead, the founding executive director of the Carson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice at Loyola University. Thanks for joining us. So it may not come as a surprise that this is happening, but it will certainly leave a mark, not just from the obvious visual standpoint. Can you talk about the emotional significance of painting over these words?
So they bring up this professor who's the professor of race, ethnic, whatever, critical race, who gives a damn, woke studies over at Loyola University. And all I can ask for is for Congress to actually follow through and start defunding these departments, because we shouldn't have a professor of DEI and race and whatever being paid for largely by tax dollars and being subsidized by federal student loans. But
now I hope that you all saw the exceptionally good news that the U.S. government is withdrawing $400 million in grants to Columbia University other universities are going to, and it's going to follow suit with other universities based on the administration's complete inability to protect the Jewish students on campus. I hope Harvard and Brown and Dartmouth and the UC Berkeley system and all of those universities are next. NYU, of course. Because enough is fucking enough. Now, in Columbia's case, in the case of the Ivies, most of the Ivies, with the exception of Brown University, have very, very healthy endowments. I think that Columbia's is nearly 14 billion, so 400 million probably won't matter. But it's the symbolism of the act that's important. And also, these universities are facing Title VI lawsuits. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I agree. I think that a lot of these departments need to be defunded. They are not scholarly. They produce nothing of value or importance, except for sinecures for professors who churn out papers that nobody reads, and brainwashing students with really, really bad ideas without a balance on the other side. These universities have been completely captured. So let's go.
You know what? I'm not giving her a fair chance. I'm not giving her a fair break. Maybe, just maybe, she doesn't hold absolutely every position that we all know for a fact that she holds based on her title alone.
Having to wrestle with the fact that not only are we at a different place in terms of the administration, we're at a different place in terms of people's feelings around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're at a different place when it comes to the erasure of historic programs in Black history and women's history. We're now seeing that the next step is removing or covering up these visual representations that were so important during the Black Lives Matter movement.
They're not important. They're not fucking important, okay? It doesn't matter. It's really not important. And the thing is, Muriel Bowser, you know, she decided, fuck it, I'm going to get ahead of the curve. I don't want to get into a showdown with the man who lives a few blocks away from where this Black Lives Matter mural is painted. You know, what is the point? I'm not going to die on this hill. So let's continue.
These historical markers that we have looked at as being the way of understanding how it is that an organization, that an institution, that a city wrestles with something that is so important.
Is that actually the words that came out of this woman's face right here?
Yes.
She just talked about how, oh, we're in a different situation with DEI and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I totally understand that. And honestly, that's fair commentary. I'm going to set that aside and say we just agree to disagree on that. But let's be peaceful. Let's, share a country together. But then she said they're erasing the symbols, these things of historical significance that mark certain periods of time in American history, and that is honestly absolutely tragic. That is honestly absolutely terrible, which, you know, would be a good thing for her to have expressed back in 2020 when they were ripping down statues of our founding fathers, when they were ripping down all these different various symbols across our country that marked significant moments in our nation's history. But for some reason, 100 to 200 to 250 plus years of American history, depending on which monument needed to be taken down in any given moment, that's totally fine to erase. That's totally fine to eradicate. That's totally fine to destroy in a cultural revolution. But this 4-year-old lettering that is on the street in the District of Columbia, this yellow paint, that is a symbol. That is something that is truly significant in American history, and that's something that we need to keep with us in our hearts at all times. I just want to point out again that the Atlanta Football Hall of Fame that was destroyed and looted by Black Lives Matter is more significant in terms of American history than these words being painted on the street in the District of Columbia. Again,
and I would also point out that if you really want to talk about significant symbols of the Black experience in the United States, there are 2 specific locations in DC you can go to: the African American History Museum, and which is wonderful, and you can also go to the Martin Luther King Memorial, which is fantastic, except for that weird statue that that makes Martin Luther King look like Chairman Mao for some weird reason. But it's a beautiful memorial. So there are far more significant points of interest in DC. You don't need this bullshit mural in the street. It is totally unnecessary. The time is well past. And I don't see a reason why we should be honoring a violent, corrupt, anti-Semitic organization in the streets of Washington, period. And racist, of course.
And all of the things associated with the Black Lives Matter riots are all negative. All the policy changes that they got put into effect are all terrible. All the cultural changes are all evil, absolutely nonsensical in every possible way. And of course, it was all done to promote this woman's ideology that now she wants to commit backdate into our history, but not too far back in our history, because if it was actually historical, she would want to tear it down, because this woman spoke out in no way, shape, or form against the historic symbols of our country being destroyed by these very Black Lives Matter rioters and the politicians that endorsed it.
Yes, and you talk about the ripple effects. What do you think the reaction will be to the change here in the city and nationwide, especially once that mural is gone?
You're going to have this camp of people who are like me, who are concerned about what does it mean to move down this path of erasure.
The Black Lives Matter rioters, need I remind you, burned St. John's Church in the District of Columbia, a church that opened in the year 1816. It is often referred to as the President's Church. They have a pew that is referred to as the Presidential Pew.
And this was particularly fucking galling. Okay, as a Washington, D.C. native, as somebody who was born and raised in the city of Washington, D.C., St. John's Church is a treasure, a precious treasure by the White House, a beautiful old historic church, and that's what they did to it. So please miss me. Please miss me with the great contributions that these rioters made to the city. They should not be memorialized in any way, shape, or form. And that's not to mention all the other damage and destruction that was perpetrated on the city. And Washington was just one of many, many, many cities where these people ran riot and destroyed beautiful landmarks and destroyed precious, and people say, oh, well, the businesses have insurance. That's true. But how many of the businesses reopened after the riots? So, and some things just cannot be replaced.
And they burned that because when they were trying to attack the White House and get at the evil orange man, Secret Service was able to repel them. So they decided to take their revenge on that historical monument, on that historical landmark. And then they were rewarded by the city after taking it hostage, after destroying portions of it with these letterings. And yes, it is a good thing that we're erasing it. It is a good thing that we're setting it aside, because it's absolute nonsense in every possible way.
Kind of a second camp, I would say it's people who are happy that it's being removed. We know that Black Lives Matter was not celebrated across the board. We know that Black Lives Matter is considered to be something that was divisive, and people thought we were saying only Black Lives Matter, and we were saying Black Lives Matter too. Like, in addition to other lives matter, we were saying our lives matter as well.
That's not what was being said.
Conversation around police brutality.
Honestly, I'm so sick of the left and the ridiculous talking points. I'm so sick of their nonsense. The idea that Black people matter, that Black Lives Matter, is something that almost nobody in the entire country disagrees with.
Right.
We're not confused about the message of Black Lives Matter. What we understood is that the organization, the ideas, came with a lot more than Black people shouldn't be killed. In fact, it wasn't even about Black people being killed, because what they wanted to do was defund the police, and that led to way more Black people being killed.
That's
as
right.
The murder rate jumped 30% year over year post the George Floyd Black Lives Matter riots. So we understood 100% it wasn't about that. It was an anti-American ideology that we did not support. They love to play this game, and they've been doing it for now 10 years, where they say, oh, you disagree with Black Lives Matter? That means you don't think Black people deserve to live. And everybody says, no, that's ridiculous. But it's
Exactly. I've been hit with this accusation so many times. No, Black Lives Matter as an organization is useless. It is corrupt. It is dangerous. It is racist and anti-Semitic. It is not a civil rights organization. It is an organization that was founded to basically upend certain structures in the country that led to an enormous amount of suffering and death, as he just pointed out, with this defund the police nonsense. We saw how well that turned out for the Black community. So it's just galling. It's fucking galling. And you had to march in lockstep. Oh, yes, I agree with BLM. No, I don't agree. I have been making no bones about the fact that I vehemently oppose every form of political violence. and BLM in particular. BLM, Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voices for Peace, all of these organizations are dangerous. They're very, very dangerous. Let's continue.
So all the other stuff, the rioting, the burning stuff, the B-roll that you're running right now, which of course they're showing people rip up Black Lives Matter signs, but there's much more than that was actually caused by the Black Lives Matter rioters. That's the part that we're against. That's the stuff that we're not on board with. It's just like Antifa, where they're like, it doesn't exist, it's no big deal. But by the way, it just means anti-fascist. And then you point out that they're attacking old ladies, they're throwing bricks through walls, they're burning public housing in the city of Minneapolis and causing all this kind of destruction that makes no sense at all if they were just anti the fascists, just anti the Nazis, because they never seem to be attacking anybody who's actually a fascist or an actual Nazi. They seem to be attacking regular, ordinary, normal people who are engaged in politics that are just slightly right of center many a times,
or they are attacking feminists who have come out against the radical elements of the transgender movement. They've been attacking women at gatherings, and I take a tremendous exception to that. So, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I do want to point out that not a single Democrat voted in favor of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. It failed in Congress. And I heard some of the ridiculous excuses that were given by some of the Democrats, one of whom said, well, we are not in favor of government overreach. And another one who said, we should just let the private organizations decide what's fair and what's not. No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't actually, because these private organizations have done a terrible job. They're going with the NCAA stats that do not apply to elementary, junior high, and high school sports. They don't even apply to all sports across the board in universities that are covered by the NCAA. The list of sports is actually quite short. And they're not consistent in terms of the sports whose policies they cover within different sex groups. So, I'm not convinced. I am disgusted by this behavior. And this is exactly the other reason why oh, she did? Well, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care what she has to say. I don't care what she has to say. I highlight BLM because BLM is one of those organizations that's untouchable. Nobody is allowed to criticize BLM, or else, like that individual that you just mentioned, that person will call you a racist if you criticize BLM. BLM has caused a lot of destruction and damage in this country. And on top of it, the leaders of BLM have embezzled money that was supposed to be used by the organization to advance advocacy, not to buy luxury homes. Now, if you're in favor of that, if you're in favor of embezzlement and dishonesty and violence and anti-Semitism, just come right out and say so. I have criticized a lot of organizations. Let me give you a rundown since everybody is so interested. Okay, apart from BLM, let's talk about organizations that have lost their way. I can list them for you. Planned Parenthood, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the Southern Poverty Law Center. The list goes on and on and on. The ACLU, an organization that I used to back wholeheartedly when they still remembered the point of why they were founded. All those organizations have lost their way. All those organizations no longer get money from me. I don't donate to those organizations anymore because they have become totally captured and corrupt. They are disgusting. They sicken me. I have had to send the Red Cross. The Red Cross is another organization. serving as the co-stars in those disgusting Hamas propaganda spectacles when hostages are released. The Red Cross that never once visited any of those hostages, didn't turn over the medication for hostages that were in tunnels, never once visited them, never once helped them, and in fact lectured the families and scolded the families that were begging the Red Cross to please turn over medications to the hostages. Doctors Without Borders, another organization that I used to donate to, never will donate to Doctors Without Borders again. So I hope that that satisfies everyone. Those are organizations that I have lost respect for, that I will never support ever again under any circumstances. And it doesn't only have to do with financial mismanagement. It has to do with mismanagement of the organization and forgetting why those organizations were founded in the first place. Period. So let's continue.
Or even left of center. And in addition to that, they start attacking random people, random property, because they're communist scum.
And then there's a third group of people, and those are the ones I'm most concerned about, who are not even going to know that there's a difference. Like, they never paid attention to it, and they don't know why it was significant. And so when it gets removed, they're not even aware that this really signifies a huge shift in where we're moving as a nation.
What are other changes you're expecting to see, as city leaders have said that they have to work with this new administration strategically?
I'm expecting to see a lot of challenges in cities around the country where any visible markers dealing with freedom, representation, equity, diversity, inclusion will be challenged. And I'm expecting that mayors might take the path of least resistance, which is what I see happening in Washington, D.C. Rather than fighting the president and fighting the representatives on this, it's easier to just remove it, with the idea that if I just play along at this moment, then maybe I can be in a better position to get what I need for my city going down the road.
Look, we want the shift. We want to move away from the Black Lives Matter ideology. We want to force these people to actually have sensible policies. And we talked about this on this channel before, but the city of Philadelphia, post Larry Krasner being elected, so before George Floyd's death, ended up having dramatic spikes in homicide. And recently, in the last year, the homicide rate actually dropped very dramatically because Larry Krasner, a Soros woke district attorney, was forced to finally prosecute repeat offenders. The political pressure ended up getting to him, and that is yet another indication, another marker that this Black Lives Matter nonsense is getting gone. Now, of course, every time they interview somebody on the streets of DC that's against them removing this,
it's tragic. You know, this really meant a lot to us as a community when we were really dealing with and struggling with the murder of George Floyd, and to see it just be erased really strikes at the heart of our community.
They're a political activist or a professor or something like that. There was a clip of somebody that was holding a DC statehood now sign that was also offended by this, so nobody should be surprised that these are the people, the professional activist class, that are upset about this. But normal people across the country are not feeling the shockwaves of
Nobody
this being
gives
removed.
a shit.
They
Nobody
either don't care or support it, and that's where we should be in this country.
I think it's very shameful because the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the attack on protests such as Black Lives Matter, I think it's an attempt to erase us and our struggle and our history, and it's wrong. And
if you want to, this woman knows goddamn well that there are plenty of landmarks and there are plenty of museums and other memorials and stuff that you can go to in DC that commemorate Black history in a decent and honorable way. You don't need to put a mural of a violent, Marxist, racist, anti-Semitic, corrupt group in the street of Washington that is like right by the White House. You don't need to do it. You've got Malcolm X Park. You've got, again, the Museum of African American History. You've got the MLK Memorial. You've got a street named after Chuck Brown, one of my heroes, a go-go icon in DC. You've got Black history and Black icons commemorated all over the city. You do not need an organization as corrupt and violent as BLM lauded that way in the streets of the nation's capital. Enough is enough. And good for Muriel Bowser. I know that her back was against the wall, but she did the right thing, and enough is enough.
Just sorry that the mayor felt that she had to give in to that extortion.
Now, with all that being said, I'm going to leave this topic right here and open the floor up to all of you guys out there in the audience. Let me know what you think about them removing this lettering. Do you think it's good? Probably, if you're my audience, you're going to say yes. But what do you think about them trying to gin up the hysteria related to this when it's actually not there?
It's
in
stupid.
addition to that, again, what other things do you want removed that are relics from the Black Lives Matter movement? As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links.
Okay, that's an easy one. I would take down all the George Floyd statues. I do not see why we need to honor an irrelevant man who was a drug addict and a criminal. I don't see it. I don't understand the point of it. If you want to take down statues of Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers, then why the fuck do we have George Floyd statues up? It's outrageous. I totally oppose those statues. I think that they're well past their sell-by date at this point. The man was not a hero. And to celebrate him in that way is outrageous. I don't agree with it. And again, if you are going to accuse me of being transphobic or some sort of Easterphobe, first of all, I don't give a shit. But you are going to have to explain why it is that you support, and I'm going to say it again, and maybe someday somebody will take me up on this challenge. I want you to explain why you support the drugging and mutilation of gay/autistic or gay and autistic kids. I want you to explain that to me. I want you to explain why we are pumping gay and autistic kids full of drugs that are going to have long-term health complications. I want you to explain to me why it is that we think that an 11, 12, 13-year-old kid is in a position to make a decision that will impact the rest of their lives when we don't allow kids to make decisions of that nature in any other area of life. We don't allow kids to get tattooed. We don't allow kids to join the army. We don't allow them to smoke, drink. We don't allow them to drive until they reach 16. But you really mean to tell me that those kids have enough judgment? And I'm talking about the kids who don't have parents that are guilty of Transhausen by proxy. You know, who want a trans kid as some kind of a status symbol. And the parents who have been grossly misled by medical professionals, using fake suicide statistics. I want you to explain to me why you agree with one of the most extreme forms of conversion therapy this country has ever seen. When it is done in Iran, we think it is a human rights abuse. When it's done in this country or in the West, it's be kind. I completely and totally oppose it on every level, and I have for years. I am not a Johnny-come-lately to this issue. So if you are in favor of drugging and mutilating gay and autistic children, I want somebody who is in favor of that to explain to me in simple terms why they are in favor of it. I consider that to be a gross violation of human rights. And I oppose it. I oppose it. I want those people who are out there saying that I'm a racist to explain to me why it is that we think that Jewish women should be meat for slaughter and rape. Why Jewish men should be meat for slaughter and rape by bloodthirsty maniacs. I want you to explain to me why Jewish students don't deserve protection on college campuses. I want you to explain to me why it is that none of these people who are hurling accusations of racism around are talking about the Pakistani rape gangs in the UK. People who claim to be against predators, people who claim to be in favor of women's bodily integrity. They have not a word to say about that. They don't have a word to say about what's happening in Syria, where there is an actual genocide taking place now. If you don't believe me, go on Twitter and take a look at the horrific video evidence of what is taking place in Syria right now, which has taken place in Syria before, and yet again, nobody had a word to say about it. Nobody has a word to say about the predations across the African continent, the suffering of women and girls in so many African countries, why it is that you don't have a word to say about the women and children who are accused of witchcraft in places like Uganda, who are locked up in huts, or if their children, they're buried alive, or they're put through horrendous exorcism rituals. In many cases, these are children who have epilepsy or who are autistic and who are accused of witchcraft. Read about it. Read about it and tell me why it is that you don't say a word about that. Not a word, because you don't care. You know, you absolutely don't care. I've talked about that, and look at the color of my skin. I seem to care more about that than these so-called social justice warriors, these race baiters. But you don't care. You don't care. I care about that stuff. And I was thinking that maybe, thank you, Cece, I appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking that maybe I was going to do a stream about the whole problem of witchcraft in Uganda, the belief in witchcraft, and the terrible torture that women and children are put through in that country, which is far worse and far exceeds, not only in terms of numbers, but brutality, what happened in Salem. It is ghastly. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for being here with me today. I appreciate all of you. Little bit of change of pace. And I appreciate you. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks, guys. Thanks to the new members. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for everything. And I will see you guys the next time.